I have Jennifer Edwards, a certified financial planner and founder of Breakthrough Financial Wellness. Thank you for coming onto Under the Paycheck.
Hi, Amy. Thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
I am so excited to talk about finances and the psychology of finances. You created the 7-layer financial wellness framework that involves what I think you got it spot on. It's from societal, relational, educational, behavioral, physiological, psychological, and neurological. How did you come up with these?
Well, what I noticed was that most of the financial planning industry, the financial literacy industry, believes and speaks to the behavioral and the educational layers. Most of my career in financial planning, and I worked for a nonprofit, we had an educational component and an advisory component. And so I was navigating both of those worlds. We would let people understand the information and we'd educate them in the literacy stuff. And then we'd give them the one-on-one support to help them to apply those principles to their situation. And what I noticed was that there were some people who those two layers, something else was going on for them that made it difficult for them to actually enact the advice, to follow through with the things that they cognitively, they said, yes, I want to do that. And then they knew how to do it, and they were given the instructions and the tools to be able to change their behaviors, but something was keeping them from being able to actually enact those changes in their lives. And so I started to just think and explore and read and study. And then I took a trauma class and I learned all about the neurological behavior behind all of this. And I took a psychology training class. I mean, when I say class, I mean big courses, right? Like multi-class courses that get into this stuff. And I was just like, yeah, there's a lot more to this. And the reason that I want to do it, that I wanted to expose the layers, was because most of us are carrying some level of financial shame around our choices and our situation right now with money. And when we understand that it's not just that you need to either make more money, sometimes that's the case, or learn something new, sometimes that's the case, or generate a new behavior, a new habit, sometimes that's the case, but it could be other things that are involved in how you got to be where you are. In fact, for most of us, there are. It's not just, your willpower is keeping you where you're at. And what that does is it helps us to diminish that shame. And then we can start to work from a place of like confidence and clarity and go, there's a lot to how I got where I'm at. While I'm not going to, blaming doesn't help. It doesn't help to blame your parents or to blame society, but to understand that and start to work from a place of truth means that you can start to work forward and go, what can I change? What can I control? What's my responsibility? It's really empowering, I think, to start from that place.
As a financial advisor, is the focus more on to try to make the client happy in whatever their goals are, or is it trying to maybe educate the person more to be ready for like retirement and for the future? Where does it
Yes.
like fall?
Yeah. So now my main work is certified financial therapist. So I don't know if you mentioned that in the thing.
Okay.
So the certified financial therapist credential is what I tacked on after I left the nonprofit firm that I was working for to focus on these psychological things, because I saw that financial planners, we have this training that helps us understand the logical side of things, and like we really are great at running projections and helping tune people into like, this is what's going to happen if you continue at your current savings rate. If you don't change it, you're going to have this lifestyle, and putting those choices in front of people and saying, so you just tell me what you want. You can either work longer, you can save more, you can have a lower standard of living in retirement, or you can, you just tell me what you want and I'll tell you how to get there. And that's great financial planning. That's what it does. But what it doesn't do is oftentimes people will actually get those goals. They'll be like, okay, I'm saving enough. Here I am. I'm doing what's right. And they're still not feeling calm and confident around money. And I see this happen especially with really high net worth clients, millions of dollars in the bank, and they're obsessed about money. And it hurts my heart, because I'm like, if $10 million in the bank doesn't give you the ability to relax and just live life and enjoy your family, like you've been working all these years to build up this level of wealth, and now you're in retirement and you're having Now I know that it's a neurological, like it's a safety response. They're not feeling safe watching those account balances decrease. Like they're used to money increasing, right? Their nest egg growing. And then when it's like it's time for deaccumulation, it's time to like actually watch this money like fund your life. And it is to flip that switch for people. I've worked with people who's just like, this is so sad. People who are on their deathbeds and they're talking about their trusts and how much money people are getting and all that. And it's just like, this is it. It's toxic and it's pathological. And the financial planning industry isn't fixing that. So that's, one of the main reasons that I'm doing what I'm doing. And I switched from financial planning into we're going to call it financial wellness. So I'm a financial
Huh.
wellness specialist and consultant. So I'm getting at those, like you might have plenty of money in the bank and you still might not be okay psychologically and emotionally. Or you might need to make more money and you might have some neurological aversion to like why you're even able to like go out and actually pursue your dreams and increase your station and put yourself out there in a career sense. Like say, hey, I'm actually going to put myself in a position to earn the money that I can earn. There's actual identity issues going on. Some people, their family has an identity around a certain socioeconomic level, and it's literally like you'll be ousted from the group and you won't belong anymore if you start to climb that ladder. So until we deal with that kind of stuff, the finances aren't going to fall into place correctly.
I think I'm feeling the physiological part of this
A
conversation.
little bit
You're
of a
like,
stress response coming up, and you're like, this embodies me. Yeah.
everything you're saying, it feels like it's like speaking to my soul and like hitting every point. And I'm like, oh no, that does sound like me. No. Oh, okay. But see, it's important because if it's like happening to me, it's happening to everyone, and there's no particular like level to it. Like maybe you're like just anxious to check like your bank account. You don't want to look at your bank account. Maybe you're anxious because you do have millions and
And you don't
millions
want to
isn't
lose it.
enough.
You don't
You
want to
don't want to
lose
lose it.
it, and you want it to go to the like, let's say you're 10 million, you hold $10 million in the bank and you're 75 years old and you know that you're not going to be on earth forever and you're worried about what's going to happen to the because you have identified with that money. It is a symbol of your life's work. And so for it not to serve the purpose that you have imbued with that, then you're going to be stressed about that. And to learn to let that go and to just go, hey, I was actually like becoming who I became through the process of getting this wealth. Like that's in and of itself enough. And if my children decide to do something different with it, or what I would be encouraging is to fund nonprofit work. That's the other thing. The other kind of reason behind my work is that we have all these anxious wealth holders, and we've got plenty of financial capital in the wealth holders of this country to fund all of the nonprofits for decades. And they're all struggling to get the money that they need to fund the social programs that we need in this country. And if they could learn to let go of that and be like, hey, maybe I don't need to give it all to my children. By the time you die, your children have already had their career. They're probably not in a vulnerable position anymore. So it needs to be part of the legacy plan. And a lot of people are like, it's almost like this equation that they have in their heads. Like, I went to work and I worked so hard, so I actually kind of neglected my family. And now the way that I'm making up for that is to give them this wealth at the end of their lives. And there's just a lot of emotions tied into that, a lot of relational issues, which is why that's one of the layers. Sometimes they don't want it. Sometimes they identify with it as a source of pain or a source of abandonment or rejection. And so it's not speaking to them the way that it's speaking to you. So, we need to treat money the way that it is. It is, think of it, it's like an empty battery. It's a source of energy. It can be used for anything. We identify with it. We create all these stories around it. And until you unpack that, you're probably not as fully healthy as you want to be around money.
I'm sure it's not easy to, I wish it would be like to be like, what is the problem? What is like the specific issue on why we have so much emotion tied to money? Because it is a little weird because on one point you have no money and you're stressed. You gotta pay things. You're 20K in debt, you get your student loans going, it feels like it's never ending, and you're just, like, in this, like, circle. But then in the other point, say for, like, example, I'm a very small business owner, and if for whatever reason my business didn't make, say, $1,000 of what it made last month, and I've dropped, I feel like I'm a horrible person, even though
Right.
everything is fine, you know? Dinner's on the table, I'm fine, clothes, the basic things, no big deal. Next month will be fine. And yet it's like this weird correlation of no matter like what I imagine, no matter what position you're in, there's a problem.
Mhm.
Is it as simple as just asking why or
If
like
it was simple, people wouldn't pay me thousands of dollars to help them overcome it. Because one message that we have, this is in the societal layer, one message that we get, and we see it all over the media, all over social media, all over the movies in Hollywood, and even the messages that come out of our politicians, is this equation between self-worth and net worth, or let's just call it self-worth income. But, basically how much money you're earning, how much money you have, and what you're worth as a person. I mean, even the phrase, and you'll hear this in small business groups all the time, to charge your worth, charge what you're worth, because people are like, oh, people can't afford what my service is, and then they'll say something like charge your worth, what you're worth. And it's like, Amy, your worth is infinite. Nobody could ever pay you your worth. So we need to disconnect that. Your how much you made last month versus how much you made this month. When people maybe reject your services, like let's say you closed 10 calls last month and you only closed 7 this month. You had the same number or the percentage went down or whatever. It's so hard for us. We have to do the work to do it. It's so hard for us to disconnect that is not a rejection of it's a rejection of that person. There's all kinds of reasons why they may not have the money to do it. They may not be ready to do the work that you're saying, hey, I could do this for you. And they might just not be ready. They just might be in that place. There's a whole framework about indecision and where they might be on that spectrum. And you might have to nurture that a little bit longer. But it really is this message that we get from society that says rich people are worth more in society. We even put numbers on it. The adjusters will do it for life insurance. If you went into your life insurance adjuster and said, I want a $30 million policy, you'd be denied.
yeah.
But somebody else, somebody else might be like, only $30 million. I mean, like, I'm worth $600 million, right? And so like we're actually literally like putting values on people, and you see it even not monetarily, but like I live on the edge of the Navajo reservation in Arizona, and there is a huge missing persons problem on the reservation. If somebody had the same set of facts and they were Caucasian and they lived off the reservation, like the FBI might get involved, and like you'd have huge search parties and you'd have huge like social media campaigns like Nancy Guthrie. She's in Arizona. I grew up in Tucson. Like trying to find this one old lady, the resources that are being put into it. And yet every year, dozens to hundreds of people are going missing. If you do nationwide, it's definitely hundreds are getting victimized or going without. And it's like we as a society have said that this other person's life is worth more energy than somebody else's. We've done this with people of color. We've done this with Black, Indigenous people of color, been told their whole existence that their lives are not worth as much as another person
So
with a
this would
different
fall
color.
under like societal, relational, educational, and behavioral in your 7 layer as
This exact thing of like how much you're worth. So that's definitely societal because it's coming in from this image, and you've had it since you were on the playground. There were hierarchies on the playground. Who was popular. If so and so didn't come to school, who noticed. Who was going to call your parents and say, is somebody okay? Is somebody sick? This was happening since early grade school. So societal, yeah, for sure. And then definitely it's in our psychological layer, because it's this story that we have then created out of the information that we have been receiving from society that then tells us the story, like you're saying, like, oh, I didn't make as much this month. And you feel, and this is where the physiological comes through. The psychological is the story that creates the physiological response, and the emotions is, I'm not worth as much, or I'm disappointing people, or I must be a screw up because, my income isn't just going steadily up month to month. As you know, as an entrepreneur, and as I know as an entrepreneur, that's not how it works. We know
It's
that
not how it works.
intellectually. We
And yet
know
it
that
doesn't make us feel better.
not until you process those things intentionally. My work in financial wellness is really about creating consciousness around your financial experience. So it would be like, okay, for Amy, let's just run through a little exercise. So let's just go
Yes,
through that for
please.
a quick. So if you can remember, a time when you're thinking about, I had that for a second, just where does it sit in your body? Like, is it sitting, does it make your whole body heat? Does it feel a weight on your chest? Does it feel
I'm
like make your body want to kind of scrunch up like this and go into dorsal vagal where you're like in a womb, like you need that security?
I'm a stomach person.
Stomach, so it lives
Like
a lot in your stomach.
the moment something like feels like it's all mental. I'm never like in danger, thank goodness. But like anytime mentally, like I'm just fighting with like myself, instantly a drop in my stomach.
Mhm. Mhm. I
And I
get
either
that.
gotta like it's embarrassing, but I either gotta like run to the bathroom or be like, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
So
Right.
yeah, what
Okay, so let's just do a little bit of processing here. So I want you to, if you feel safe, closing your eyes sometimes is easier because you're not then distracted by the things that is coming into your vision, right? So if you close your eyes for a second, and I want you to just focus right now on that pit in your stomach. Okay, and then just don't try to think, but focus on that space kind of behind your eyes. And do you see any sort of identifiers of that, where that tension is coming from? Is there a color that shows up? Is there an image that shows up? Does it feel like a gender, or does it feel like it has a specific kind of light or dark quality to it?
is it bad if I just say it's just like black darkness?
Black darkness. Okay. Is it kind of thick or thin? Is it like
Thin.
kind of thin, so it's kind of ethereal, almost like a film?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to call it this black film. We're going to call this feeling of inadequacy. Is that kind of a good word for it?
Yeah. We could it's definitely some confidence
Okay.
situations.
This black film that's kind of sitting in the pit of your stomach. Now, I want you to interact with this black film as though it is an intelligent essence, an intelligent being in and of itself. And we're going to ask it some questions, okay?
Okay.
We're going to say to the black film, we're going to say, what would you like me to know about your experience? And then when you respond to me or you say it out loud, don't filter anything, just what comes naturally, subconsciously when you say, where did this come from? What would you like me to understand about your experience? Is there a story that comes to mind? Is there a relationship, like a person that you're like, oh, this comes from this person or this experience?
The first thing that comes to mind is just, I guess, like childhood.
Okay. Can you come up with so ask it like, how old are you? Is there a number that comes up just automatically?
10.
Okay, 10. All right. So we have a 10-year-old dark essence that feels inadequate and maybe unworthy, okay? That's going on right there. And at 10 years old, so think about the time when you were 10 years old. And is there anything in your experience when you were 10 years old that could have given you the message that you were either not worthy of love or attention, or that your needs weren't important, or that you were less valued than another person? Any experience or story that's coming to mind there?
That's when I realized that I need to be different from the current financial stand. I think that's when I was aware of finances.
Mhm.
Love and all of that was no problem, but
Okay.
that's when I knew I need to take care of the family.
Hey, take care of the family. So, um, that's a lot for a little 10-year-old. That's not actually the role of a 10-year-old child. The 10-year-old child should be able to just play and learn and develop and not have to take care of anybody. The family is supposed to take care of them. And you made a connection between this role and the financial situation of the family, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so for the first time, you kind of came to this awareness of our financial situation is forcing me to be in this caregiving role at 10 years old.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Can you picture yourself at 10 years old? Do you remember what you looked like?
I was a potato.
Okay.
I was quite chunky.
Okay, so you envision that little 10-year-old child? Can you bring her to your awareness and to your consciousness?
Yes.
Okay. So here she is. Now, can you take her out of you and set her in front of you?
Yes.
Okay, so she's sitting there in front of you. What would you like her to know? What would you like her to feel? What would you like her to experience that she didn't get back then? Or you could even ask her. So usually it's just saying something like, I get that what you went through was really hard.
Girl, you are amazing. You think about and worry about the future so much. You just got to be a 10-year-old. You got it covered. You did it.
Mm-hmm.
There is no problems.
And can you let her know that you recognize her sacrifice, that she didn't get to have the childhood that she deserved because she had to take on adult roles way too early?
I would probably tell you not to go work at Del Taco because Del Taco really sucked.
Okay, so don't speak to me like you would say to her, say, "Hey, I wish you didn't have to go work at Del Taco because that really sucked."
I wish you didn't have to go work at Del Taco because that really sucked.
And then ask her, "What would you rather have done?"
What would you have rather done?
Okay? What's she telling you? What's the first things that's coming to mind?
Buy a motorcycle.
Buy a motorcycle. So she wanted a dirt bike or something?
And my family is all motorcycles.
Okay, motorcycles. Now, at 10 years old, you're not really allowed to drive motorcycles, but maybe you found some roads off and
But there was passion.
there was passion. She wanted to ride motorcycles. She wanted to get prepared to ride motorcycles and be able to ride motorcycles, and instead she had to work. Can you just witness that for her for a moment and just say, "Man, I wish you could have focused on that instead of having to take care of your family at 10?"
Yes.
Okay. How is she responding to you right now?
Nothing.
She's kind of low affect, not really emotional about it.
Yeah.
Is that something that you have experienced a lot in your life where you just kind of keep from feeling an emotion to keep from feeling the pain?
No, I'm a big screamer and crier.
Okay. So she is protecting you. She's holding on to the armor so that you can have some emotions. You want to release her of that?
How?
So we're gonna let you. We're gonna help her. We're gonna say, hey, at 10 years old, you don't have to be the strong mighty force with all of the answers anymore. Ask her how old she thinks you are.
Think I've lost her.
Oh, she's run away. Okay, she's a little bit afraid of this inquiry. It's like, wait a minute, I might be going into dangerous territory. Okay, so sometimes that happens and what we're doing right now is internal family systems work. And so that usually means that there's a protector part that is coming out to say, no, you can't have access to her because we don't trust that you're going to take care of her because at 10 years old, of course, when you couldn't, she had these burdens. Yeah, you can wake up. That's good.
Ugh,
How does your stomach feel now?
good. I feel airy.
Feels a little lighter? Okay.
Airy but sweaty.
Okay, so that's all energy, the sweat and the air moving, that's literal energy being released. So those are all really good things. Now, we're not going to solve all of your financial issues in one little,
Damn.
10-minute session. You're like, I was signing up for that when I had Jen on the podcast. That was my whole point. But a little bit of that, you could go back to her, like maybe tonight when you're laying in bed before you fall asleep. Sometimes I like to put my hand on my chest and like almost like rocking a baby, just being like any parts that want to show up and tell me what they're feeling, or just speak to her even though she may not be responding. Say, I just want you to know I'm here for you. This is what we call being self-led or in self energy. So that's really where you want to interact with your money at all times. That's the goal. We know that that's not going to happen all the time, but especially in big decisions, big decisions with business or in big decisions with, you mentioned before we got on the call about how you want to talk about, home purchases and retirement planning. Like we want to come to those places in the place that you're feeling now, which is calm, I would imagine, more calm than you were before, maybe feeling a little more confident, like, yeah, some of these things weren't in my control as a little child, but I can now address them in a more mature fashion and more developed.
Since I'm being extra vulnerable on the internet, I do want to give some context in case somebody does feel these same things. For anybody who's listening, childhood normal, all of that, no weird traumas. It's just, and I think a lot of people would say the same thing where your parents are just, broke. You have food, a roof, clothes, you're going to school, but you know that you could see like your parents fighting over money or like a rent payment's missed, or you can't necessarily go and get like new clothes. You got to go to like the thrift stores and stuff.
So we're talking the same experience here. I just want to let you know that my parents had to borrow money from me sometimes in my babysitting days to pay the water bill or the electricity bill. But we always had a roof over our head. We always had food on the table. Wasn't the best food, but not new clothes, lots of hand-me-downs, lots of secondhand stores, knockoffs, that kind of thing.
And I got to do everything. I went to college, I travel, I do have motorcycle, I do whatever I want, whenever I want. I don't believe I have any regrets. I do go out. If I want to hit the beach after this podcast, I'm going to the beach after this podcast. It was what has sucked was learning financial education, because I think you get your financial education from your parents, because school doesn't teach it. Fortunately, school does not teach it. And you are either going to learn it from your family or your friends, and your friends are your exact same age. So when you're 15, 18, 21, no one knows anything. And the most stressful parts where it started reaching physiological and psychological was finally entering after like reading all the books, going to all the classes, speaking to professionals, actually making that leap of, okay, no one in your family has ever had a business. I'm going to go open a business. No one in your family has ever talked about stocks or owned real estate. I'm going to go get stocks and real estate. But it can be so scary being alone and like carrying everyone with you, or at least it feels like you're carrying everyone with you. I think that's like my issue. In case anybody has like extra traumas, I don't think I have those extra traumas.
Well, think of trauma as there's a couple of good little ways of thinking it. It's an social unmet need. It's not the actual event. It is the feeling that you had of being alone in it. Okay. So they have shown that if you live in a war-torn country or you suffer a sexual assault, that how people respond to you and the support that you're given determines whether or not that creates long-term damage and actually turns into pathology, or whether or not you can process it because you feel supported, or if it stays with you forever. So that's that. And then it is literal trapped energy. So when we do releasing work like we just did with your 10-year-old self, we're moving that trapped energy, and you've got a lot stuck in your tummy. That's where a lot of it has kind of settled, is that trapped energy. And our bodies speak to us through our symptoms. They speak to us through, I mean, if you think about what an emotion is, we have decided that the physiological response of heat building up and muscles tightening and your brain going into very black and white thinking and like preparing for fighting, we call that maybe rage or anger, but it's just a set of physiological responses that we've labeled that, right? And other cultures might label something different, and they might even have words for emotions that we don't even have. In fact, I know that's the case. There's lots of words for emotions that English doesn't fully capture.
Do you think we're suffering more now in this, like emotionally, with finances and the world revolving around money and the economy and all of that, than we used to, say, in the 100 years ago? It's not even like a crazy amount of time.
Yeah, it's not all that crazy. I mean, I lived in the 1900s. I was born in the 1900s. What a weird thing. So it depends on how you want to measure suffering. One of the things that I teach my clients is the wave-like nature of the universe and of our lives, that there are always periods of expansion and contraction. That's why we would refer to them in finance, or periods of like struggle and relief. right? Every generation of humans will have those cycles. So I think we're better off in that we have better ways of disseminating information and people learning. But then we're
Yes.
also worse off because we have some people we're disseminating non-truths, right? So both can get out there. Like people can actually be following down a path that's harmful to them. All of the helpful knowledge is out there and also all of the harmful knowledge is out there. So I don't think that we're ever going to solve that as a society. I think that's one of the things we have to release is that it is our purpose to try to alleviate suffering in the world at the same time knowing that we're not going to do it. It's kind of an oxymoron, but we have to live in that paradox. There is paradox all of the time, right? When I had my children, my 100% goal was to make their lives easy, even though there's no way to do that. They're all going to come
Bullies,
out. Yep, they're all going to
bad
come out with
grades, bad
experience.
at
The
math.
broken hearts are still going to happen. The lack of confidence in certain areas, the feelings of like not being able to get where I'm trying to go. Like it's just maybe it's different things than it was for me or my parents or my grandparents or their parents. But I do think that there's scales for things and you can take measurements of things like suicide rates, divorce rates, mental illness hasn't been measured real well for that long a period of time. So it's kind of hard to compare that. There were probably people suffering with those things and we just didn't label them correctly. So I think it's more important to just say to ourselves, there's always going to be these cycles and not to, it's kind of like helping us understand, like, don't dread the next dip, the next struggle, because we all know that the best stories and the best lives have all of those ups and downs. When was the last time you enjoyed a movie that just showed somebody having a good time for 2 hours?
That's a good point. All the superhero movies, there's
It
always
doesn't
something.
it doesn't exist because growth cannot exist in that circumstance. We go on vacation and hopefully it's a rejuvenating time to get us back to being able to handle the stuff that we have to deal with all of the time. But nobody really wants a life like that. You actually don't. You
It
actually
sounds
don't want that.
nice. It sounds nice though.
Like if you were to connect with your psyche and say, "Do we really want a struggleless life?" You'd probably convince yourself very quickly, "Actually, I don't.
Oh my
Actually, I don't."
goodness. I like the points that you make. It makes sense. For a person who wants to try to get better, is it like meditations? Is it facing your finances? Talking to your parents if there's like childhood trauma stuff going on there, because when I think of like therapy, I always think of it's childhood traumas, it's like facing your fears. It's I'm no therapy expert, but like
Uh-huh.
there's always like these common sayings.
Yeah.
What do people focus on?
So this is where my 7 layers where I'm into really two things, diminishing the shame and being intuition led. So what I suggest everybody start with is writing down the 7 layers, and you labeled them off at the beginning, but we'll say them here again. Societal, again, the systemic stuff that you have less control over. We do live in a democracy, so you do have influence in those areas maybe more than in an authoritarian regime, but let's just say that most of that is out of your direct control, certainly to change in the short term. Societal, relational, so the things that are going on in your families, in maybe your office culture, things like that. Then educational, we have a lot of control over that. Like if you need more information about something. Behavioral is changing, habits and systems and patterns. The physiological, what you can do there, learning stress management, your diet, sleep, and exercise habits, handling any disease types of things that you've got going on. And then the psychological, again, those stories and those beliefs. If you go to my website, we give you a beliefs inventory for free. You run through like what the beliefs are and how strongly you believe them. And then that you do that, especially with your romantic partner, it gives you a bit of a perspective. You help understand each other's internal world and psychological experience around money. And then the neurological is really where those traumas live. And in that neurological system of things that are just so automatic that you could just like somebody with PTSD, they could get triggered over something that's not harmful. Right? That's neurological. And we have those kinds of responses around our money where we may not think that a situation is safe on a neurological level. Our body might say the budgeting habit is literally life-threatening because of those stories that you have from childhood, they might actually feel that like getting ahead financially might oust you from the group, the family identity. And so we really don't want to generate wealth. We don't want to garner wealth. So what I have you do is write all of the layers out and then write your biggest financial hangup. So the thing that you came to me with, thing that keeps coming to your mind, you're listening to Under the Paycheck right now, and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, this is the thing that's the biggest issue right now that's probably affecting the most stuff, or that my family keeps complaining about, or that would impact things in the best way. Like your financial hangup goes there at the top, and then you circle or mark or star any of the layers that you think are involved in that hang up. And then we close our eyes and we ask our intuition, where do I start? And the very first thing that comes to your mind, I don't tell you what it is. I can tell you from a financial standpoint what's going to be most effective. But your intuition knows where you need to start. If it's a conversation with your boss, if it's, I need to read this specific book, I need to follow Jennifer Edwards' content, or I need to get in touch with Amy Allen, or if I need to, I've been blowing off seeing a therapist and I need to get back into that, or I need to ask for a raise, or I need to tell my 37-year-old child that they need to move out. Your intuition knows where you're going to start. And then when we talk about it, I certainly give you strategies of like support through that. Like if it is a conversation that you need to have, we talk about how do we structure that in a way that's going to not damage the relationship, at least give the most fertile ground for that to happen in a healthy way. If it's like, oh, I need to understand my finances. I need to outline a budget sheet and I need to outline a balance sheet. And I want some support through that, because you're probably going to have a neurological response even going through it, just getting the right kind of support. I mean, of course, I'm going to say, come to Breakthrough Financial Wellness. We can get you started on the right path, because we know that it's not just willpower and it's not just that you might need to make more money. Those are the two things that most people are saying. You need to either make more money or save more money or have greater willpower. I'm like, we might for 2 weeks before we have the conversation. We might need to have a new establishment. You might need to, I might just be suggesting a book so that you get the knowledge and the understanding of how your body trapped trauma. It could look a lot of different ways, but I want your listeners to trust that initial impulse, because we always, our conscious brain usually comes in and messes it all up. So that very first thought that you have, I would go with that.
Agree with you, as I don't necessarily think that it's as simple as make more money or make better choices with that money. Because in theory, everyone would be fine. In theory, like, okay,
the knowledge
great.
is out there. Everybody
Yeah.
has access to the information.
But I wanted to specifically talk to you because the neurological point of like a blockage sounds so interesting. And it sounds like that would be the part that is stopping you. So say like you made a point of going out to make more money. Times you'll be stopped because, wait, I can't possibly jump from, let's say, 40K to 60.
7.
I don't have the experience, I don't have the education, I don't have the time, I don't have the I don't.
Right.
So now I have kids, I don't know, anything, right?
Whatever excuse you want to give yourself.
So now you just stay there at the 40. You've learned how to budget with that 40. You're comfortable, but you could have been somewhere else. So theoretically, yeah, a little happier. Theoretically, a little like further down. But I think it's that neurological thing of like something stops you. And it's not as simple as just make more money and handle that finance better.
So the neurological response is really about, and it sounds kind of silly, but literally as a child, part of you created a story that this could threaten your life, because that's what it was to a child. Think about when we're little. If you don't have control over your resources, like the grown-ups around you are supposed to get those for you, you literally could die. And they have shown that babies die from not getting love, even if they're fed, even if they're changed, even if they're kept warm. If they are not in connection with another human being. So our psyche knows this, like that we need other people, we need that connection, we need to be loved, we need to be cared for. And you could talk about its biological roots, its evolutionary roots, but the important thing is that your body doesn't believe that that action is safe. It literally thinks it could be life-threatening, like it could be saving your life by keeping you from getting this promotion.
The emotional ties are important because, and I'm going to toss in a little bit of history because the history has a lot of math. When you just look at the math, in theory, it should all work, but it doesn't work because we're tied to emotional stuff. In 1817, the New York Stock Exchange was formally established. We are now in the year 2026, which means for 209 years. That's at least 4 generations, at least.
209 would
Maybe
be
like
more than
5 or
4.
6.
Yeah, like let's divide that by 30. That is 7 generations.
Wow, terrible. And yet only like 28% of Americans aren't invested, which tells me that there is an emotional side to it, that mathematically you have 209 years for every family to go, you know what? Yes, it has its ups and downs. It's scary. That's the emotional part. It's scary. You put $20 in and the next day it'll be like $18. And that sucks. But that emotional tie of that sucks because you had to work so hard for that is that connection that you're making. But in theoretically, it's always gone back up. But then you have that dip again. And then it always gone back up to where I can almost guarantee you that in 1817, let's say Vanguard. Vanguard right now is currently trading at like 600 and something dollars. There is no way it was trading for 600 something dollars in 1817.
Well, the interesting thing about stocks too is that what you need to do is own the whole basket of goods, the whole basket of publicly traded stocks
The 500.
in portion to each other. So in their market share, at least relatively to that. And that is what has created we're going to call it the 6% equity premium. So 6% over inflation. So if inflation's high, then you're getting more off your stocks. It's a little bit of a delay, but there is no period of time since worldwide diversified portfolios were available to people that a 20-year period did not produce a positive return.
Exactly.
There's only that I know of one period that produced in a 10-year period a negative return, and that was in the 1970s, where it basically stayed flat for about 10 years. So your odds are pretty good that you're going to do well. You're going to increase your money more than the cost of goods and services goes up. I want to do two things, well, 3 actually, with that statistic. First, think about the country in 1817. Black people still were slaves. We were 50 years away from them even having basic rights. And then we were in Reconstruction, and that did not last long enough. This is my historical perspective. That did not last long enough. And so then we went into Jim Crow era. So Black families have not had 7 generations to build wealth. We're really at about 2 or 3 for them.
Okay.
So that's in there. So, and then the other thing that we have is, because again, what did I say about the neurological thing? It's about safety and trust. And so Black people have been told, I mean, we've got the Freedmen's Savings and Loan, where all of their money was stolen. We've got the Tulsa financial district riots, where all of their money was destroyed. All of the Black-owned businesses were destroyed. So there's trauma in there. Then we've got the Native American experience, where the government was signing documents and then just saying, you know what, I know we put this on our signature on these treaties, but we're just going to take your land anyway. So the trust in the institutions, especially for the BIPOC community, is legitimately, and it's like, well, of course they don't trust the institutions. Their bodies have been stolen, their land has been stolen, their identity has been stolen. So let's make sure that we're taking that into account. If you're having a physical repulsion from that, there's generational trauma there. So you have to work through that. I'm still going to say that's the best mechanism for you to build wealth, even though you're a member of the BIPOC community. And I want you to know that I'm acknowledging it. If nobody else, I'm acknowledging it as a person that's working with you, saying, I get why this is harder for you than it would be for your Western European descendant, counterparts.
I don't remember the year, but wasn't it also like women couldn't own property or like credit cards or like
Gosh,
anything?
1970s. That was
The 70s? No, I was really hoping like 1917.
No, when they didn't even get the right to vote until, let me look it up. We were still doing women's suffrage,
So we're screwed.
USA, USA.
Trauma-wise.
1920 was when that was ratified, which prohibited denying citizens the right to vote based on sex. Barely 100 years old. Right. So that's one thing. So understand that whole that societal message came all the way down into your neurology, into your feelings of safety in those institutions. The second thing I want to do, just in terms of trying to be successful with it, okay? Because again, this is trying to attack into the educational layer, and I know you need to attack the trauma layers first, but know this, that if we can expect the dips, we know that it's going to go up and we know it's going to go down. Just know that over anybody's career path, so the 30 years from your 20s to the 40 years from your 20s to your 60s, you should expect 3 major downturns. You need to expect 3 major downturns. So when that comes, you just go, oh yeah, that's that thing that I heard about on that podcast. That's when this is what's going to happen. So now I need to serve my neurological system, my psychological system. Everybody else is losing their head. I have to remain calm. And then the other thing I want you to focus on, and I love this little piece of information, is instead of focusing on the balance, you said $20 becomes $18. It could be $2,000 becomes $1,000. You could lose 50%. We've had a 60% drop in the Depression. We've had a 40% drop in the Great Recession. You could lose an enormous amount of money, what we maybe call value. But if you look at the number of shares, just focus on that. Instead of on your balance sheet, just putting the amount of money that you have there, I want you to put how many shares you own. And every year, especially if you do the right thing, which is reinvesting your dividends, which is really about a half of the 6% equity premium is the reinvesting of those dividends. If you focus on your shares and you just go, how many shares do I have at the end of 2025? And then you look at the end of 2026 and you go, oh, I've got more shares. And you don't even look at the number in terms of the balance. Of course, that's going to go up and down because that is just subject to people's perception of value and what they think is going to happen. And this very random thought of like expectations of participants in the market, which remember, anytime somebody buys a stock, they're selling it, they're buying it from somebody who is selling it. So we've got 2 people who believe the opposite thing about that stock at that moment. One person thinks it's a good buy and one person thinks it's time to unload it. That's the only way an exchange happens, is you have to have a buyer and a seller. So there's no way to say like, okay, I'm right about this. Like this is the right time to sell this. So we don't do that. We only buy and sell in relation to what our plan dictates. Is it time to rebalance our asset allocation because we're now closer to the time frame of the goal? You should be 90 to 100% stock portfolio until at least your 50s. I don't care what's going on in the market. I don't care what somebody says about gold. I don't care what somebody says about the next recession is coming down the market. It's time to get out. You don't do anything different. You buy the entire market. You could use a target date fund. You can use a total world fund. They have those at Vanguard. They have those at DFA. Digital Fund Advisors has a ETF. That's what all my kids' IRAs are in, is just DFAW. It's the entire world. You could put it in VTWAX, which is Vanguard's total world stock market index fund. Either one of those. Just don't even touch it. Don't even leave it. It doesn't matter what anybody in the news is saying, what any of your friends are saying. If you want to play the stock market with your Robinhood app or whatever, that is entertainment money. That is not investing money. You are not investing that money. If you are moving it because Robinhood has said, hey, this stock looks like it's taken off today, you want to get in on it? That's just a dopamine response. You looking for something fun to do, and that's where that lies. But that is not investing.
Besides emotional issues that everyone has, I think the other issue is definitely planning. If we're supposed to plan for like 3 big main events that are just gonna like destroy you physically or mentally, that are just gonna destroy you. If I were to go and talk to like my friends right now, we're all in like our 30s. We're in early 30s. If I were to go talk to my friends right now and be like, hey guys, we need to prepare and plan for 3 major downfalls, I can like 100% guarantee you no one's gonna listen to me. Everyone's live for today. Why are you always like thinking about the future? It's fine, it'll get figured out. Or I have too much work to even think about that right now.
Yeah.
I just got done with 10 clients. I just want to go home and and have dinner, have a glass of wine. Don't bother
Veg.
me. Type of this is how my conversations go. So I think one of the issues is planning. And if we can't plan, theoretically, it'll keep happening. Like maybe if everyone was planning and prepared and things like that, we can bring this down to one downfall. But
No, I don't know. That's a
no?
really interesting speculation. No, I don't know that you could, because it is based on the very primal, it's almost like every generation has to go through it to learn the lesson. We just keep
That
repeating
sucks.
ourselves. But here's the other interesting thing is that the only way that we can get the 6% equity premium, the only way that we can get the nice 10% return that we get in a diversified portfolio in the stock market is because there is risk involved, there is volatility. If we knew what was going to happen, like we know that there's going to be at least 3 downturns in your life, but we don't know when, we don't know how long, and we don't know how deep. And if we could predict that, if we could just say, okay, then there wouldn't be enough volatility in the market. The reason that it works is because people are speculating. If nobody speculated, then those of us who aren't speculating couldn't actually take advantage of that. It's only because it's like nobody knows, because it's irregular. So
Okay.
when I look
I
at
kind of get
volatility in
it.
the market, I just kind of go, this is the little secret that those of us who are disciplined and patient get to take advantage of, because so many people aren't. Because so many people are trying to use a long-term investment tool to make money in their short term. And we get to benefit from that. And I don't think we'll ever get rid of that tendency. I think there will always be people. This is why we have betting of any kind. You don't know what the outcome is going to be. You've got 2 groups of people. Let's just say it's a game, a football game or a cockfight, right? You're talking about 1817. And somebody is always going to say, oh, I know this guy. He makes, he raises good roosters that are really good at this. And the other guy is saying, oh, no, this guy has a new technique. And he's, so they all think that it's knowledge based, but it's just luck. It's just random. But you will always have people who try to do that. And that is a dopamine seeking behavior, is trying to make money in the short term off of something. That is seeking that. If you've ever been to a casino, that rush of energy that you get right as you're pulling down the pulley, or as the dice, I don't gamble, but as the dice is being rolled, and you think that maybe you could win $100 in just 2 seconds, not using any skill, not providing any service or anything of value to the universe. That's a rush of dopamine. And a lot of us are seeking that in our society today because we feel bad. We feel bad, and then we seek a dopamine-seeking behavior that happens to create this. This is another thing that I teach in my classes. I mean, when I work with clients, it's like we're teaching you concepts, and then we are applying them to your life. And we teach about the dopamine system and how this is Anna Lemke's work, and how the pain and the pleasure centers are co-regulated in the brain. So you can't actually have just a pain-free response, just a painless response. You're going to have this lever that says, okay, I'm lessening my pain by rolling the dice or betting on this, whatever. But then your brain is going to have to say, well, we're going to have to even that out a little bit with an equal amount of pain. And because the societal message around pain in our culture is pain is bad, this is why I teach you that to expect it. Like we got pain around the corner. There's growth in pain. There's connection in pain. You learn a lot in pain. When you go through something, you figure out what you're all about, what your priorities are. When you're in a crisis, who comes to your aid is really revelatory.
Mm-hmm.
You learn who's really on your side and who's just kind of on the sidelines and doesn't really, but then when things are good, it sounds like, sometimes we have to have those painful experiences to learn something about ourselves, to learn something about our relationships, to figure out, what is our worldview? We have a lot of people out there who don't believe in a higher power until the earth starts shaking below them, right?
That's
and then
true.
they're just, all of a sudden they're like, God save me, right? And uh, and there's a lot that we learn about, the universe, about ourselves. So that's part of where I'm just like, to be conscious about it is just to go, ooh, uncomfortable for sure. I'm not dismissing that it's painful and it's difficult and it's hard and nobody wants it. I certainly am not wanting it for myself. But when it happens, if I can get conscious around it, I can go, on the other side of this, I will have a better perspective. Now that I'm 50, I have several of these to look back on. My kids who are in their 20s and they're experiencing their first major heartbreaks and the disappointment of maybe getting turned down for jobs or the difficulty of working with a boss. I'm like, I know you're going to survive this because I've seen it in myself. I've seen it all around us. They're still feeling like this is the end of the world because they haven't overcome all that stuff yet. But they'll learn their own strength through those things. And so I don't try to help them through it. We try to certainly problem solve, but I don't have the perspective of like, oh, we need to stop this at all costs.
My goodness. Thank you so much. I could talk to you all day about the psychology of money and the psychology of our history. But I really have to let you go. We're a little over an hour, but I had so much fun. Where can people find you? Where do you want people to get all your socials? And of course, I will link everything in the descriptions below.
So the name of the business is breakthroughfinancialwellness.com. It's long, but it makes sense. Breakthrough Financial Wellness, all one word, no underscores or anything like that. Go in there, either get our free resource, get on our email list, or just go and book a 20-minute complimentary call with me. We just start with like, what are you experiencing around money? And then we start to come up with a plan of attack.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right.